So I guess without further ado, we'll jump on into packaging legacy applications for modern desktop environments. So would love to introduce the team here. We got Alchemy Technology Group. We got Jason Willis, the practice principal. We got myself. My name is Duncan Byers. I'm the director of marketing here at Numecent. And we're going to be joined by Doug Pfeifner, our CTO, and Giovanni Oliveira, our deployment engineer. And then I guess without further ado, Jason would love to get things rolling.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the introduction there, Duncan. So yes, a little bit about Alchemy, right? So Alchemy is defined, right, as the process of taking something ordinary and turning it into something extraordinary. And we do that by four kind of key pillars here at the organization. The first being that we only hire the top talent, both technical and part of our account team. We pride ourselves on building an extraordinary trust-based relationship with our customers and partners. This is very vital to the business as we continue to grow and expand within these different organizations. We have the right portfolio of technology and services, being that I have other peers that I work with that have their own pillars, their own services, and their own technologies that they work with. And lastly, one of the things that we really focus on is creating transformative business outcomes. And we do so by putting the right product, being able to deliver the right services so that our customers can continue to evolve in their technological journey. At Alchemy here, we currently have about 85 alchemists, now over 700 customers. Our technical team has a lot of experience, with an average team member being about 15 years on the sales side. And to go with that, our professional certifications, we have a number of those across many different verticals and disciplines, and a combined tech team knowledge of over 400 years. Our tech folks are, again, some of the best in the industry. And you can see where we're located here. We have coverage throughout most of the United States, that being Pac Northwest, Great Plains, Rockies, Southwest, Gulf Coast, Southeast, and SoCal. So we can cover those and be able to help out where we need to. And finally here at Alchemy, we focus on turning silos into solutions. And what that really entails is that we're looking at your technology stack as a whole, right? We're not going to just come in here and focus on one piece. Where we pride ourselves is being able to go out there and identify, right? Take multiple different inputs and then be able to funnel those through our four practices. Experience being the practice that I run is basically everything from the endpoint to the back-end data center. We've got our protect practice, which focuses around identity and governance. We have transform, which is cloud and automation. And then our newest practice is going to be foundation. And that's going to be focused around the Microsoft journey and experience. So a little bit about Alchemy. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Duncan to tell you a little bit about Numecent. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you. And so a little bit about Numecent. We launched in stealth mode circa 2012, funded by Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, also known as DARPA. And that team consisted of a bunch of world-class engineers and developers and inventors, and with expertise across all 20 plus years of the Windows operating system, came together really with the goal of simplifying the mobilization and management of applications across modern workspace and multi-cloud environments. And we'll walk through kind of how that led to what we're talking about here today in a bit. And ultimately what this meant was Cloudpaging. And so today we serve more than 1.7 million customers worldwide, been featured by all the top analysts, and are servicing the largest cloud providers and enterprises in the world. So it's really exciting for us. We've got 56 patents under our belt, a few more pending, and we're really, really excited about what the future holds. But without further ado, what is Cloudpaging? And so Cloudpaging is a next generation application virtualization tool, and it's the process of abstracting apps from their operating system, dividing them into pages or like these instruction fragments, and formatting them into our patented container technology. And what this allows you to do, and for the purposes of today, what we'll be discussing is formatting legacy and really any complex application in a manner that guarantees they can run on modern Windows Azure-based environments, including Azure Virtual Desktop, Endpoint Manager, Intune, MSIX, Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops, etc. And ultimately, this is empowering IT to streamline packaging efforts, deployment, ensure application compatibility, and improve success rates like more than 9x. So why is this important? Applications are designed for their technology era. And again, that's why we're here today. Innovation and adoption are constantly accelerating, and our favorite tools are becoming legacy faster and faster. And if we go back to the history of applications, we go back to as far as mainframes, those applications built for those weren't prepared for the emergence of the personal computer. In a similar vein, desktop apps were not inherently able to run on the cloud. And today we're even seeing technology move past cloud first initiatives and towards the edge. And the bottom line is there's always this need for modernization. We also saw, there's been a lot of initiatives for Win 7 to Windows 10, and now we're seeing, just last week, Windows 11 being announced. So legacy investments continue to be great value adds and mandatory in some cases. So that's why we're here today, and it's a great thing you are, because like I said, things are becoming legacy even faster, and we want to continue to enable folks to leverage those existing investments. And we think Cloudpaging is the perfect way to do that. And Jason, I guess I'd love to bring in here is this kind of, what do you see in the market, and what are your customers coming to you with?
That's a great question there. So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of this today, right? Just kind of adding to what you were talking about before is, I mean, again, how fast the technology is moving, it's unparalleled. It's something that we haven't seen in the last few decades, right? We're moving so fast and things are moving so quickly. And the hard part is a lot of enterprises, a lot of big commercial entities, right? They've invested so much money, so much time into some of these applications. And to pick those applications up, modernize those apps, rebuild those apps, and do this work, I mean, it's becoming daunting for some of these organizations, right? Or it's just that intrinsic knowledge of how that app went together, or how we compile that, or what all the pieces went into it. We're seeing that across the board, all verticals, all sizes of companies that need that help. And with this product today, what we've been able to help our customers do is be able to bring those applications along so that we can provide the best end user experience for the customers, right, while still presenting those applications. So absolutely, we're still seeing that a ton of today, and that's what we're getting. Why we've joined this partnership, this venture together, so that we can help our customers, continue to use those applications.
Awesome. Appreciate those insights. And what I'm going to do now is bring in our CTO, Doug Pfeiffer, and really to double click before we dive into the solution and just talk about, why this is important from a technical perspective, what the challenges are of getting these legacy apps to run these modern OS.
Thanks, Duncan. Hello, everyone. So let's start with, again, those common challenges. If the legacy app worked, you probably wouldn't be here. So obviously, they typically don't run on a modern operating system. Workarounds are very expensive because you're probably trying to keep that old operating system around just for those specific apps. So why is that? Why is it difficult to move from Windows 7 to Windows 10 and beyond? Well, we typically see applications in sort of two categories. There are those applications from the large publishers, the Adobes and such. They probably have newer versions that do work on Windows 10. But enterprises typically keep those older versions around because of the data, right? They have specific data for specific needs. And without that legacy application, they wouldn't be able to continue to use that data. The next category is really those either smaller publishers or more likely line of business apps that were created in-house for a specific operating system. Maybe that's Win 7 32-bit. They were under pressure. They had time constraints, budget constraints. They just needed that application to work. And unlike the big publishers, they didn't really worry about quality control against 32-bit and 64-bit or home editions and enterprise editions of Windows. But they really focused. And because of that, they probably did some shortcuts of hard coding, maybe the pass or registry locations. So that's the first common one, is that for a lot of these line of business applications. They're made just for that specific operating system, so they don't really port to other ones very easily, especially not more modern ones. Next, you have either the middleware or the runtime libraries that these different legacy applications use. Again, it could be homegrown, it could be from the big publishers, and typically those runtimes now have newer versions, and they're likely not compatible, and they'll have compatibility issues if you try to put on like an older Java version. It might have security problems, might not be compatible with the newer applications that need it. So putting that onto a modern operating system sort of jeopardizes that system as a whole. And then finally, we have, as Windows progressed over the years, obviously their security features have improved, which is a great thing. But that makes it difficult for these legacy applications. You know, things like service hardening, kernel hardening, UAC changes and advances makes it so these legacy applications, when they expected to be able to write or modify to certain places in the file system or registry, now they can no longer do that, especially with more limited users being the user that actually runs these applications on those newer operating systems. All this just adds up that, you know, it's again, very expensive and time consuming to try to get these applications to run on a modern OS. And then they're not DevOps friendly, right? It's not very agile to try to get new either employees onto them or move them to a different environment if you want to change out, you know, whatever you're using for your desktop infrastructure. All right. And then as both Jason and Duncan touched on, legacy is not just about Win 7 to Windows 10. Unfortunately, legacy is always here, right? As technology continues to advance, you know, there's always going to be that need to move those applications to the next desktop, whatever operating system that's on. For example, AppV is approaching the end of life. A lot of enterprises have used AppV for many years, especially on Windows 7, so as their go-to packaging tool. Well, that's not going to be around pretty soon. So what are the alternatives? How do you get those applications to continue to run on modern operating systems and desktops? And then more companies are, you know, starting to do virtual desktops and desktops as a service, especially with Azure Virtual Desktops that came out. Now, if you look, those enterprises that tried to move and probably did some success, move from Windows 7 to Windows 10, well, now you have to worry about going to Windows 10 multi-session with Azure Virtual Desktop, right? Something you didn't expect, something that those applications probably weren't written for to be able to work in a multi-session environment. So now let's talk about cloud paging a little bit. Cloud paging in 3 basic steps is we have a studio component that will go and abstract that application from the operating system. And really, this is meant so that when you package it one time, you can use it on future operating systems. And frankly, that's what Numecent developed this technology at the time. We wanted to make sure when you packaged on the current operating system you were on, let's say Windows 10, that that would work with Windows 11 that's coming out. So we spent a lot of time, research, innovation into trying to make sure this was possible. And now that's come around and said, oh, well, all that effort that we put in actually makes legacy applications move over as well. Something that we didn't expect at the time, but works really well because of that. And we'll talk about the details. Next, we have a cloud paging server. You take those applications that you packaged, you load them onto a server. We have this available in our cloud. You can also run it on-prem, and it gives administrators really control, right, of that life cycle. So software asset management that they can do with those applications, who they're delivered to, how long they should be delivered, should I perform an update to it, can I get usage reports and metering reports on that application's usage, and then should I retire that application? That's all available. We won't talk about that too much today. We'll focus on legacy, but just know that's there. You can come to us with more questions. And then finally, we have a cloud paging player. And this is really what does that rapid delivery and virtualization of those applications onto the desktop. So we'll talk more about those 2 pieces, the studio and the player. Now, the key capabilities that makes cloud paging able to take these legacy applications and run them on a modern OS first starts with our file system driver. So the file system driver is important for that, first bullet point of, well, if there's hard-coded paths, what happens? In cloud paging, you don't have to worry about that because in our driver, we've already abstracted the differences between those operating systems. So when you go to package, we'll already have templates in place and we'll take care of it. So we want a consistent view to that application, no matter what the operating system is of the underlying file system. Next, we have a unique registry hive. And this goes hand in hand with the file system. Again, you want that consistent view. So we do redirection in the registry hive to give the highest compatibility when you're moving from one operating system to the next. And then we have a writable sandbox. Again, this writable sandbox is key, especially because of the security concerns, right? If you had legacy applications, a legacy application that wanted to write to its configuration data, it wanted to write that to program files. Well, in newer operating systems, it's limited users, it doesn't have that permissions. But with the sandbox, we allow that application to go ahead and make a configuration change to its own files, and we sandbox that off. So that's separate. It doesn't go, it's not visible to the rest of the operating system. It doesn't compromise the rest of the operating system. And yet it allows that application to work as if it was on an OS with lesser security just around its own assets, its own files. And then finally, the data we pass through. So any documents that are created by this application, we pass it right through to an OS. Admins can use any tools that they're already comfortable with, OneDrive, etc., file shares to deal with the data.
Hey, Doug, I got a quick question for you there. So just kind of going in there, is this, when we were talking about some of those key capabilities there, does this have dependencies, right? So do we need to be physical? Does it need to be virtual? Does it need to be like an on-prem, or can this be cloud hosted? I mean, what does those capabilities provide for those users?
Yes, this works on any desktop that you're trying to deliver to. So that can be a physical device, a laptop, a PC. It can be a virtual device. If it's in the cloud or on-prem, VDI, Citrix, Azure Virtual Desktops, any of those could be used as the target desktop that you're deploying the application to.
Thank you.
All right, now we talked about two aspects, packaging and then how that application runs on the desktop. Let's talk first about the packaging side. How do we really enable these applications to run? So we have a container. Inside the container, we have all the assets. So what does that mean? An application is primarily made up of files and registry keys. So within our container, we have all those files and registry keys, and you can set different dispositions. So by default, we have this integrated disposition. If you think about Windows, one of the strong points of using a Windows operating system is sort of this inheritance of all these applications that have been designed over all the different decades and how they integrate and work together, right? For example, maybe you have an ERP application and you have your Office suite that's been installed. You'd expect it to integrate together as you want to do Excel sheets and Outlook. You just want those applications to work as if they were installed, because that's really the power of these publishers. They've come and they know that there's other applications that are well known and well used, and so they've integrated with each other. So by default, that's what we do. We have, even though it's in our virtual container, we have an integrated disposition layer that lets applications just seamlessly work with each other. Shortcuts work, file stations work. It works as if it's natively installed. It's just controlled within our container. And then we have an isolated disposition. Now, the isolated disposition is also key to those legacy apps, because when we talked about middleware and runtime libraries, well, with those you really don't want to be accessible to other applications on the system. So you'd put that into the isolated disposition part of the container. And you can actually, either file by file or components, you can, as you package, just decide which disposition they should be in. We make it really easy to capture the middleware and isolated, and the regular application is integrated, which is a default that a lot of applications will use, especially the legacy ones. It's also important for those AppV applications that are coming over, easily being able to put those into a Cloudpaging package and deliver it as well. And then finally, we have an install disposition. This is key if you have actual files such as drivers that you need to put on the underlying OS. So if there's some Citrix driver that you need to have installed, no problem, Cloudpaging can take care of those as well. Now, if we put this all together, what does that mean when you have it now on the desktop and running? Well, okay, so when Cloudpaging runs, we have this, not just the virtual file system and registry, but we have a virtual API layer that really does the access control for all the processes that come through. So obviously we have the Cloudpaging applications, and so all the IO for the file, the registry, fonts, environment variables, all of that goes through this virtual API layer. Those applications will see their own assets, files, and keys. And then anything that is integrated, we allow the installed applications to see. But more than that, we have granular access control as well. So if you had again, in legacy context, if you had a plugin, let's say it's a legacy plugin for Excel, and Excel's installed on the system or delivered through Office 365, you can still allow Excel to see into that isolation part of the container and not the rest of the applications. This is also nice, this fact that there is a container, because again, if you think about those big publishers, you probably not only want the legacy application to run for that data purpose, but likely you probably want the newer version to run as well. And while some publishers will make those run side by side, there are many that don't. And with Cloudpaging, because of its rapid delivery, you can easily then have that legacy application do the work, switch it out to then virtualize the newer version and do work with the newer version. And then we also separate this access control is per session. So again, think of newer operating systems. If you're trying to go to Citrix, if you're trying to go to Azure Virtual Desktops, it's a multi-session environment. You really want to be able to have those legacy applications work in that multi-session environment. Well, then Cloudpaging will already separate per session these applications, so they don't leak in between each other, and every user will have their own set of applications, and they'll still be able to benefit with the integration and isolation layers, knowing that it's per session. So all of these helps with offloading, really the management of these applications from IT into Cloudpaging, because we give you a lot of controls to do so, especially with those legacy applications. Now that you have a kind of an idea of all the technology, I'm going to hand it off to Gio so he can actually talk about some real examples for you.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. And hello to everybody. So here we have an example of Oracle EBS. This requires Java, and what I'm going to explain here is how we were able to capture Java isolated from the locally or current version of Java that's installed in the target system. So the considerations that we had beginning this project is that the version of Oracle did not install on Windows 10. Like I mentioned earlier, it requires Java 1.6 or JRE6 in other words, and also that Oracle required the local version of Internet Explorer to use that JRE6. So we resolved this using three of the main features of Cloudpaging, which is folder templating, which allows us to capture on an older OS and then Cloudpage this to a newer one without having to worry about where it installed, and if the application is hard coded to look at a specific path, we handle that automatically using template folders. The second feature that we used is the isolated disposition. So as Doug mentioned, we have different layers, and we have a default layer 3, and then we have a isolated layer 4. So in this example, we captured Oracle into layer 3, so that way it would integrate with the system and interface with anything on the OS that, that would behave as it would natively. And then we use the isolated disposition to capture Java. Now, this makes it so that the application will look at the version that is in its own package, that is the isolated version, and not the JRE6 that's locally installed. So we were able to get around that by using our disposition feature. However, when using this feature, whenever JRE6 is running, and then if JRE8 is running, JRE8 might want to update JRE6, and then this will break our package. So what we're able to do is fine-grain control which processes are able to access or change our assets. So in this case, what we did is we denied JRE8 paths into our package, and we allowed JRE6 assets into our package. So in this way, we're able to create a nice like self-contained package that you can just deploy one package onto a system and have it perform as expected. So the results of this were that the Oracle EBS software was able to update the external data, either local database or if that's somewhere else. Another result that we were able to do is we were able to have the Oracle's version of JRE be blocked from all other applications that may want to use it. So we blocked that by, again, using that isolated disposition. And lastly, we were able to also deliver a shortcut to Internet Explorer so that IE, when launched through this special shortcut, would use JRE6. But if you launch IE from anywhere else, it'll load the natively installed version, which is the JRE8. All right, and here we have a success story that we wanted to share. So here we have a report that was ran through AppDNA, which gives you a red, amber, green status for each of the applications. This particular enterprise customer had about 42% of the applications that were not able to install or function properly on Windows 10 or Windows 2016 when transferred from Windows 7. And we were able to get 100% of these applications to work with minor changes, such as capturing on Windows 7, installing some of the prerequisites that the application would require. So we captured it on Windows 7, we deployed it to Windows 10 without much effort. They were able to go through, and we had, like I said, 100% success rate. A couple of these applications that stood out. One of them is Open Bloomberg. So Open Bloomberg was one of these apps that we had to capture on Windows 7. Like I said, we had to install some of the prerequisites that it needed to install. So that was Office 2010. So we captured that, brought it over to Windows 10. It worked properly. However, Open Bloomberg does have a issue. Well, I'm not sure if I want to call it an issue, but it has a requirement that it needs to write to protected areas such as program data or program files. Normally, limited users, if you're taking away admin rights from them and you want them to, to have less impact on the system, you take admin rights away from them. So what we're able to do with a writable sandbox is that for Open Bloomberg, if it wants to write to program data, it can. We allow it to do it. It doesn't write directly to the system, writes into a writable sandbox, which again isolates it from other sessions. And with using this, it was able to work properly without having to elevate the user or having to set any rights on those paths. And yeah, so that Open Bloomberg basically covers both of those, where you would have to change the application or rewrite it so that it writes to app data rather than program data or program files So we're able to take care of that automatically without having to rewrite the application, and that saves a lot of time. Lastly, I want to share a story from one of our university customers, which they were able to lift and shift 300 plus applications that were already packaged with Windows 7 and bring them over to Windows 10 without changing anything in those packages. They just basically published it to the users and made it so that when they went to the App Store, they were just able to pull it down, and it worked successfully, 100%, no changes needed. This saves a lot of time because gathering the installers, repackaging, retesting all of the applications can be very, very daunting. So with Cloudpaging, we're able to make that migration very easy for our customers. And with that, I'll pass it over to Duncan to complete this.
Awesome.
Next slide.
Thanks, Gio. Yeah, I guess
Thank you.
before we jump into questions from the audience, which again, if you've got any, please feel free to drop them in that Q&A tab. Jason, I guess would love to kind of reflect on some of the stuff we worked on together as well. And would you mind, I guess, walking through some of the use cases? And we alluded to some at the beginning, but just kind of how you're seeing this leveraged and whatnot. And I guess anything you want to speak to here.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Duncan. Yeah, so we were working, we have a lot of oil and gas customers out there. And one of our reps brought out to us, they said, hey, customers having a problem. We've got AppV today. We're having an issue trying to get things packaged. We want to have a standardized delivery. We're spending a lot of time going back, repackaging these apps, type kind of deal. But they still felt that, AppV was the right solution. But they had some very targeted apps that we needed to move, right. We need to get to a modern OS. So there was a journey out there. Looked at some products, and we ended up coming to Numecent here, and they're like, man, this product is great, right. We were able to take some of those applications that just weren't working well. We couldn't get the package in AppV, and the customer's like, well, like, hey guys, like we're not going to get to we're going to get ahead of our skis here and say, oh, we're going to move everything to here. I said, look, their sentiment to us is AppV is still going to be our primary delivery solution. And we're just going to leverage Numecent for for what it is. We've got some apps that we just need to move and move over, right? So the journey kind of started out that way. Whereas they were still doing that, still doing AppV, and and then all of a sudden it was like just a shift change here where people really said, man, this is a great platform, right? Now I can take this app. Look, we were on 2012, now we went to 2016, now we're going to 2019. We're looking at Azure Virtual Desktop, previously Windows Virtual Desktop. Again, why are we continuing to repackage these apps? So, somewhere along those lines, along that journey, they said, hey, this is the platform way to go. So, and this specific use case, they had thousands of applications that they were packaging, with AppV. And by moving, kind of switching that where Numecent became the primary platform for their application portfolio. And I think that's really where, how we've seen a lot of customers start that journey is that at first, they're coming in, they're talking to us and saying, hey, we need something for this, right? A small use case. We don't want to, we don't need to do all this stuff. And, we just want to take this thing nice and slow. I'm like, sure, that's how we love to do this. We love to get the product in here. And then once you start to see the value, you'll really understand why, again, this becomes your application portfolio management, right? To do so. So with that customer, they made the flip, and now they're creating, they've got containers for every one of their apps. They're able to individually, or I shouldn't say individually, dynamically apply, what applications users can see, right? Whether that's through Citrix, whether it's their browser, however they're accessing it. Could be WVD, could be Citrix, could be whatever virtual workspace, right? That the customer has. They can now leverage those applications that come across. And that's really where, we kind of really see the value of the product is that once that adoption occurs, once that integration gets there, leveraging that as your portfolio and how we're able to shift those apps out, right? If somebody goes out there and we have an issue where, another thing that we were seeing as part of their use cases was, hey, they pushed out a change to all these fat clients, right? And and there was a plugin that didn't install correctly or had some type of issue. Now you've got to reboot all those machines and revert all those pieces and all that stuff. and Numecent really just said, hey, we're just going to fall back to our previous version here. And the user goes, logs in, they get prompted, and now they're able to get right back to where they were, minimizing downtime, minimizing that frustration to the help desk and some of those issues. So this solution is so much more, and it has so many pieces that it can really help organizations, from any size, right? Again, whether you're physical, kind of what Doug was talking about earlier, whether you're physical, virtual, on-prem, in the cloud, the package once deliver anywhere solution, is really where we see a ton of value in this product, right? Not only for those intrinsic features like rolling back and moving things forward and being able to individually target apps is where we've seen a lot. But I mean, that was that customer there was just, like I said, once we had gotten this in there and got it going, they were excited. They loved the product, and the partnership has just continued to grow and flourish. And like I said, we're seeing that across the board. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. I guess before we turn to question here, just kind of want to wrap up like what this means for the business. I know we're talking a lot about the technical know-how and whatnot, and ultimately what this should be able to do is enhance desktop performance, because we're talking about eliminating downtime for application updates by offloading that and just enabling end users to stream these applications from anywhere. So what we're seeing a lot of the time, right, is sometimes if you've got an application that is highly customized with a bunch of plugins and, there's a reboot required, even if it's only taken a few minutes. But if that's, we're talking enterprise scale of 60,000 people rebooting for 15 minutes or so, we're talking hours of collective downtime. And that's what we're going to help offload. And then it's maximizing compatibility. I know we're talking about legacy applications here today, but this really does apply to any Windows applications that you're trying to run. And we're doing this without any changes to the source code. So really enabling folks to maintain security and compliance and operate in improve compliance as well in a cloud context. And so that's part of it. Leading into the improving security and compliance and whatnot is mitigating these vulnerabilities. We've got advanced encryption, AES 256-bit encryption at rest and in flight. We've got reporting on every cloud-paged application. And then that, as Jason alluded to as well, is that instant application recall, which enables you to really just put a stopgap if you need to roll anything back for whatever reason. And then ultimately, this should, at the end of the day, this should make your life easier. It's this package once deploy infinitely model, and that's going to be across your cloud, VDI, DAS, physical desktop environments, and ultimately should be able to retire legacy specific servers as well. So that'll help you get off those old systems and really modernize your business and whatnot. Yeah, so I think we'll turn it on over here to the audience and whatnot. And I think that one of the questions that's come in is that I'd love to turn over to Gio and Doug is, why maybe you can't repackage by just modifying the STW. Is that, if I'm understanding that correctly? I guess, Gio, you want to handle that one?
Sure. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, when the customer has a larger application, it may take a really long time to go through our normal steps of extracting the application or, just recreating the installation environment. So we do offer some features that allows the package to be changed without fully recloudifying. That is, without having to go through the compression and creation of our package in its full version. So what we can do is we can extract the files from the package and edit either the AIB file, which is our blueprint metadata file, or our token file, which is our security settings and more advanced virtualization settings. So we can modify a bunch of settings without having to repackage. And this makes it really easy because normally you would just extract the application, modify whatever you want to modify, zip it back up, rename it to STP, and then you can re-upload it to the server. However, if you want to add files, or if you want to create a patch for that application, you will have to go through the process of extracting that app set onto the system, and then you can pretty much pick up where you left off. So basically, you start with a clean studio machine, you grab your STP file, extract it onto the system, make any changes that you want, repackage it, and now you have your patched or your modified app set.
Awesome. And it looks like there's a follow-up that came through. Is they answered there that we can actually modify the STP file without Studio?
So it does require Studio to be installed to make these changes, but you don't have to go through the full process of capturing the application and then creating the package, which those can be time consuming, especially for larger applications.
Awesome, thank you. And it looks like another one that came through, and as well, if y'all have additional questions, remember there's the Q&A chat that you can submit these through, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. And so we have one here. It's does Numecent integrate to other deployment solutions such as SCCM, and what does that process look like?
Yes, we definitely do. So we can integrate with a lot of management systems out there, SCCM, Azure Endpoint Manager, Citrix, virtual apps. So basically, within Cloudpaging, we have a set of APIs to control really the deployment of those applications available through PowerShell. And we've also separated out our entitlement or the entitlement process from the actual delivery mechanism. So because of that, we have REST APIs that can be used really simply to put into management systems like SCCM. It's easily done, completely documented if you come to our sports site on how to actually use SCCM, our PowerShell integration, and the entitlement piece to be able to provision from SCCM. It will get deployed out then to those desktops, and you'll still benefit from all the features of Cloudpaging, that rapid delivery mechanism, the virtualization of those applications, and the asset management.
Awesome. And then it looks we've got another here saying like asking, if we're packaging, and I think we've touched on this a little bit, is it packaging for one environment, say, such as like on-premises Windows 10, can you run it in another, such as a VDI or something like that?
Yes, you definitely can. You can definitely package. Usually we package on the least common denominator. In other words, if you want to still target Win7 for some reason, you would package on Win7, and then that package will work forward with Win10, Win10 multi-session, Windows 2019 if you're using Citrix with non-persistent. Yes, you'll be able to use those packages on any of those environments.
Awesome. And it looks like we got one as well about Intune as well, of how that works with Intune deployments.
Yeah, Intune is similar to SCCM. It's the same idea. You can go into Intune, and again, we have articles because really all you have to use is our REST API and PowerShell to be able to hook into Intune, have it deliver out the application that you want, and it will still cloud page to that endpoint. And again, all the features within Cloudpaging will be there. You shift the management into Intune instead of directly from Cloudpaging.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we got kind of a question here. What does this, mean for Windows 11? I know that that's obviously a net new development, if you will.
Yeah, it's funny how Windows 10 is not the end operating system, but frankly, that's why we developed Cloudpaging, always to be forward thinking in the next operating system. Again, we kind of talked about we have our virtual file system, and that was created so that when we went from XP to Win7 and Win7 to Win10, and now going to Win 11, it'll be the same idea that we've already abstracted these packages, so it wouldn't be a problem moving to Windows 7. We just do the work to update our driver to be with Windows 7, and there you go. Those applications will still work.
Awesome. And let's follow up on, we've got a question that came through here. And so asking about what kind of success we've seen with the previously packaged applications. Like, have you seen Cloudpage, or excuse me, let me rephrase. Like, what kind of success have we had, like, with Cloudpaging packaging apps via like other that have already been maybe packaged by another solution?
So this is like a repackaged MSI where you just make changes to the vendor provided one using an MST or or changing the installation package that way? Oh yeah. So yeah, we do a monitor-based capture, and basically when we start Studio, we just point to the MSI exe or even like a script file, and whatever is performed, whatever actions are performed within that installation, as long as that is the parent process, we can capture everything that point down. So that's one of our options where it's more of a specific type of capture. We also have a global-based capture that we capture everything that's changed on the system. You end up with a package that has more noise, you have to do more cleanup. But if we do miss anything with that first option, then you can always go to that second option. And you may not even want to keep that second option if you perform it. That might just give you some clues as to like what was missing, and then you can do the regular installation and then bring those assets over. So you have that flexibility where you can even use Cloudpaging Studio as a tool to see what is installed by the installer, what makes it onto the system, navigate through all of our tabs, and you see what was performed. But yeah, most of the time, anything repackaged is works perfectly.
Awesome. Thanks, Gio. And it looks like a follow-up to the Intune question is, will Intune read that STP file, or does it have to be packaged specifically for Intune?
You don't neither. So it will not read the STP file, but the STP file will still be loaded onto our Cloudpaging servers. And then we will put just instructions into Intune of how to deliver. And again, what it will do is it'll reach out to our REST endpoint. It'll get, so we use a token-based mechanism to start the provisioning of these applications for the deployment. So what will happen is Intune will download this token file from our Cloudpaging server, hand it off to our player, and from there, all the virtualization kicks on in the background. So you don't need to repackage your applications. You just need to create these, well, you don't even need to create, you just have to add in the instructions into Intune on how to integrate into Cloudpaging's REST API.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we have one here on kind of what this means for the entire application list. So it's saying, can you leverage Numecent for an entire application list or just legacy apps, which I think we've talked about.
No, most definitely. Yeah, you can use Cloudpaging for all your Windows-based applications. Sort of like just Jason was saying with the customer they had. Yeah, sure, you use us for legacy, maybe just to start with in some of these cases, but you don't have to, right? You can use us for any of those difficult applications you have to package and deliver to desktops.
And I got another one here. So we've got another question coming in. So either Gio or Doug here is that one thing they're asking about is add-ins, right? So they've got Excel, Word, and PowerPoint, right? And they're trying to put add-ins to those applications. Is this something that's supported, to be able to, so that those add-ins can show running for those Office apps?
Definitely, we can do Office plugins. If they're asking about sort of the usage tracking states, you would have to track Excel, in other words, or whatever the base application is. So plugins by themselves won't show up as being tracked because they're really not an application that's running. It's usually part of another application. But definitely we can deliver those to the endpoints so that you can have an installed version of Excel and virtual plugins that are being delivered or add-ins.
Cool, thank you.
Awesome. And with that, the question is like about downloading package recipes for various apps to help with the proper configuration. Is that does that play into the process?
Downloading recipes. Well, so we don't have necessarily recipes. We do have some of the complex applications. We do have instructions for some of those. But typically we don't too much do recipes because we try to make sure that Studio can handle the different applications without needing those. So we've built in, more advanced filtering technology so that when you go to, again, as Gio touched on, when you package an application, we use a capture-based approach. So we watch the installer, we see what's being put down onto the system. And then even within that, we'll filter out pieces of, maybe that application installer indirectly caused some other Windows update to happen. We'll filter those out. So you wouldn't need to worry about any of that in the package. So again, yeah, you could definitely use some recipes if you feel like it, but we typically don't too much. We also have a full set of APIs around Studio, so you could actually just go ahead and automate a lot of your packaging if you wish as well.
Great. And then I think we got time for like one more here before we wrap things up. And it looks like, so there's, advertises like, streamlining of IT and what on the centralizing of management. If we could walk through a little bit of what that looks like and how, we're, accelerating both IT delivery and yielding some cost savings on that front.
Sure. So on the cost savings side, because we make it a lot simpler to deploy these applications, again, being able to move them from one desktop to another desktop, inherently there'll be a lot of cost savings within IT, because you don't need necessarily the same number of people to do those application either packaging or deployments. They can be used for other initiatives you have in your IT organization. So, from being able to package faster, more reliable, being able to do deployments faster, more reliable. Again, if you're thinking of using, still SCCM, and you have these installers that take 30 minutes to an hour to install, you don't even know when the problem's going to occur because you have to wait an hour. With Cloudpaging and the rapid deployment, you'll get that information back sooner. It only takes, it depends on the size of the application, minutes to 10 minutes to deploy. And so you'll have a lot of cost time savings within that.
Awesome.
And we have a lot more. If you'd like to reach out to Numecent, we can definitely cover some of that ROI with you.
Fantastic. And I think the last one we'll take here before sign off. And then if there's any additional questions, as Doug alluded to, feel free to reach out. We'd love to, spend some time and dive deeper into some of the stuff that you're working with at the moment. And it looks like the final question here is there a difference between packaging, say, on VDI as opposed to physical? Meaning, like, is the application capture process different with, physical hardware versus VDI?
Those are usually the same. The only thing that you might run into is if the endpoint has a video card. So if you're packaging something like 3D Studio Max and it requires a video card to work properly, then that we would require that the VM or the VDI to have that. But otherwise, there's no difference between physical machine or virtual one. We normally suggest using virtual because we want to take snapshots along the way whenever we're capturing, in case you need to go back and change something. You have that option.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for taking the time today. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Gio. Thank you, Jason. This was fantastic. And again, if there's additional questions that we can answer for you, we'd love to connect with you after the webinar here, and certainly love to dive into all your questions and whatnot. And thank you, Alchemy, for having us.
Thank you, Duncan. Thank you, Numecent team, Gio and Doug. We really appreciate you coming on today. We appreciate the partnership and look forward to helping our customers achieve the solutions they need to. So thank you very much.
Right on. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you, everybody.